May this be one of the best moments of your life. You're listening to the BusinessMirror podcast for a broader look on business with Senior Editor Dennis Estopace.
I'm Dennis Estopace, and welcome to Tuesdays with Tito, a podcast to be anchored by Tito Valiente, one of the 100 honorees in the Centenary of Philippine Cinema and columnist for the BusinessMirror newspaper. Mr. Valiente will share with us one of the many pieces he wrote for his column titled Annotations, which is published every Friday in the op-ed section of the BusinessMirror. We hope you enjoy your Tuesday with Tito.
Living with a Dead Language. Aunt Patty was a book editor in New York for many years until she moved to the country and there discovered her love for Latin. She not only loved the language that is considered by many to be dead, she studied it. The days of coping and what I sense to be struggles and later happiness with Latin is in her book Living with a Dead Language. I have been reading the book and living with Patty's view of Latin. It is, I must confess, a facile incursion into a difficult language. I do not think at this moment I will ever find myself tired of the city, that I will finally reside in my smaller old city and then one day study Latin. What I can promise to myself is how I will always reside in words. In the case of Patty, she always collected words. This act was not only being familiar with a word, using it in a sentence, and memorizing it. For her, to collect words is to put them within the kinship system of other words. I can almost see myself in Patty, and this time, I am collecting the word awesome. It is a word that can carry you from the comfort zone of morning conversation to dark cocktail whispers, from being in awe of a religious ritual to being shocked at the sight of a leader with an ugly face, an ugly heart, and an awesome lack of logic. In other words, an awesome evil. The book also led me to accept one thing: languages never die. They just wait for humans to be interested in them again. Chapter 1 of the book starts with two quotations, Cato the Elder and Umberto Eco. To the former is attributed the quotation, Rem tene verbo cinquentur. Grasp the topic, the words will follow. To the latter is ascribed these lines, Verbi tene res sequentur. Talk about attribution and ascription and their Latin roots. And what are we as writers? Do we merely string words, or do we tackle in our mind a topic first before we proceed to writing? Cato, the first to write history in Latin, and Eco, the Italian semioticist, offer two related but differing options. In Naga, as we celebrate the long Peñafrancia celebration, a Marian feast to honor Our Lady of Peñafrancia, we describe it as a week-long celebration. In fact, it is a festival built around the novena, a word from novem, which means 9. With many activities gracing the fiesta, a launching of a new Bikol dictionary was one of those I was privileged to attend. In that gathering of word lovers, the conversation drifted to the word pag-uktaba, a Bicol word understood as to postpone. The word, even for the wholly uninitiated into etymology, would sound as if coming from another world of words. It does come from octava, which means 8. This explains the counting of days from the time the Virgin is brought by voyadores to the Naga Metropolitan Cathedral on the second Friday of September to the afternoon of the third Saturday of September, and include the Sunday, which is the culmination of the fiesta, and that amount to 9 days. Novena. It will be of interest to those who have time to be Latinist that in Bikol, we are in perpetual debates about the words we have borrowed from other languages, Spanish in particular. To digress, I am always appalled how many Manileños would refer to our local sausages as langonisa instead of the proper longanisa. My appreciation for blooms perish when I encounter in the big city men and women rhapsodizing about bongavilla instead of the vibrato-enriched bougainvillea. But this we must admit, no one can tell though which is more bonga of the two references to the same flora. It does help, or it does not help, that the internet provides an unfettered, if not wild arena of debate and word slinging. Take this question. Who has the right to carry the Virgin of Peña Francia? For those who have attended the regional Marian festival, only men are allowed to carry or push her globe-like carroza. And yet the question is not any more about gender than it is about language. There are those who believe that voyadores or boyadores can come from rover. The men, therefore, during the land procession, are part of the journey of the Virgin. But there are those who support the idea that the word is taken from bogadores, literally eluders, or those who bear the image. The land procession itself is often the site of errors. Called traslación, which means to move something, there are contemporary accounts which use the term translación. The latter sounds Spanish, and it seems to be the equivalent of the English word translation. In Spanish, for those who still bear the imprint of a 24-unit Spanish language from the old curriculum, the word for translation is traducción. The command form of that word, when uttered by usually the strictest professor, could strike terror in the heart of any student of that era. But think of it this way. Isn't the ritual which brings an icon from her shrine to a big church a translation, a movement of a belief system from one location to another? Or is not the belief itself in an image that is now called ina or mother a result of an idea translated by the natives as aided by the most astute of conquering missionaries? As the book Living with a Dead Language progresses, its third chapter is introduced by a non-Latin author, Czesław Miłosz, the Polish-American poet who was the Nobel laureate for literature in 1980, says, "Language is the only homeland." I am filled with a sense of guilt as I am leaving the city before the Virgin has traveled back via the river to her home. Is it because I leave not only a home but also a language? Or have the colonizers been that efficient in translating myself into their own image and grand likeness?
Thank you for listening to the Business Mirror podcast. For a broader look on business, follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Business Mirror. Until next time.